58 degrees below zero, endless taiga stretching beyond the horizon. Reindeer herds that meant the difference between life and death. For over 1,000 years, the Evenki people mastered the art of survival in one of Earth's most unforgiving environments, developing a sophisticated toolkit that allowed them to thrive where others would perish in hours. These nomadic herders, formerly known as the Tungus, created survival technologies so effective that they remained virtually unchanged for centuries. From the forests of Transbaikalia to the tundra of northern Yakutia, the Evenki developed tools that served multiple functions, required minimal maintenance, and could be crafted entirely from materials found in the wilderness. Tools to trust, skills that last. This is Bushcraft Arsenal. Number 1. The three-piece composite bow. The Evenki composite bow was a masterpiece of engineering that could function reliably at temperatures that would snap lesser weapons like twigs. Unlike simple wooden bows, this weapon combined multiple materials, wood, sinew, and birch bark, in a sophisticated three-piece construction that remained flexible and powerful even at -58 degrees Fahrenheit. The bow's core was built using 3 separate pieces of different wood types, carefully selected for their complementary properties. The center section was carved from dense larch, prized for its resistance to compression and ability to store energy. The 2 outer sections used birch or ash, chosen for their flexibility and resistance to temperature changes. Each piece was shaped with precise tolerances, then joined using traditional fish glue made from sturgeon swim bladders. The entire assembly measured 4 to 5 feet in length, with a distinctive recurved design that maximized power while maintaining portability. The back was reinforced with multiple layers of sinew from elk or reindeer, applied in overlapping strips and allowed to dry under controlled tension. This sinew backing prevented the wood from splitting in extreme cold while adding tremendous power to each shot. Experienced hunters could achieve draw weights of 80 to 120 pounds. The grip was wrapped with specially prepared birch bark strips, creating a non-slip surface that could be gripped securely, even with thick mittens. The entire bow was treated with rendered bear fat mixed with pine pitch, creating a waterproof finish that prevented ice buildup and protected the wood from moisture damage. This treatment had to be reapplied seasonally, but it ensured the bow would function reliably in the harshest conditions. Evenki hunters said a properly made composite bow could drive an arrow through a bull elk at 80 yards, even when the temperature made metal brittle as glass. The arrows were equally sophisticated, with bone or antler points that wouldn't shatter in cold, and fletching made from eagle or crane feathers that maintained their aerodynamic properties in sub-zero temperatures. Each hunter carried 20 to 30 arrows in a birch bark quiver, with different point types for different game. Broad heads for large animals, narrow points for birds, and blunt tips for small game that needed to be taken without damaging valuable fur. The bow's construction required months of careful work and represented a significant investment of time and materials. A well-made bow could last for decades with proper care, making it one of the most valuable possessions a hunter could own. Number 2. The Utken spear. The Utken was the Evenki's answer to close-quarters survival, a short, versatile spear that could pierce, chop, and thrust with equal effectiveness. Measuring 3 to 4 feet in total length, this weapon was designed for the dense taiga, where longer weapons would be unwieldy, and for the close-quarters encounters that were inevitable when hunting dangerous game. The spearhead was forged from high-carbon steel, often recycled from Russian trade goods or salvaged from broken tools, and measured 6 to 8 inches long with a distinctive leaf shape. The blade was ground to a sharp point for thrusting, but the edges were honed to razor sharpness for chopping through bone and cartilage. This dual-purpose design made the Utken equally effective against charging bears and for processing large game in the field. The steel was heat-treated using traditional methods that produced a hard edge while maintaining a tough, flexible spine. The tempering process was critical. Too hard, and the blade would shatter in cold weather. too soft, and it wouldn't hold an edge. The shaft was carved from dense birch or ash, carefully selected for straight grain and shock resistance. The wood was seasoned for 2 years, then shaped using traditional tools. The spearhead was secured using sinew wrapping and pine pitch that created a bond stronger than modern adhesives. Evenki hunters carried the Utken as their backup weapon, but it often became their primary tool. The short length made it perfect for fighting in dense brush, while the chopping capability meant it could process firewood, clear campsites, and even serve as a walking stick during long migrations. Veterans said a skilled warrior could take down a wolf with an Utken faster than he could draw his bow, and the weapon's versatility made it indispensable for daily survival tasks. Number 3. The Ponyagi Pack Frame. The Ponyagi was the Evenki's solution to carrying heavy loads across trackless wilderness, a lightweight pack frame that distributed weight so efficiently that hunters could carry 80 to 100 pounds for miles without exhaustion. This ingenious device represented centuries of refinement in load-carrying technology, perfectly adapted to the nomadic lifestyle of the reindeer herders. The frame was constructed from thin birch boards, measuring 2 to 3 feet long and 6 to 8 inches wide, curved to follow the natural shape of the human back. The finished frame weighed only 3 to 4 pounds, but could support loads many times its own weight. The carrying system used wide leather straps that distributed weight across the shoulders and chest. Unlike modern backpacks, the Ponyagi kept the load close to the body's center of gravity, reducing fatigue and improving balance on uneven terrain. The frame could be adjusted for different body sizes and shared between family members. The genius of the Ponyagi lay in its versatility. It could carry hunting kills, household goods during migrations, or trade items to Russian settlements. The frame could be quickly disassembled and used as emergency shelter material, while the leather straps served as rope for securing loads or building traps. The boards could even be used as snowshoes in emergency situations, making the Ponyagi a true multi-purpose survival tool. Evenki families often owned multiple Ponyagi with specialized versions for different types of loads. Children learned to use smaller versions from an early age, developing the strength and balance needed for the nomadic lifestyle. Number 4. The Cherkany Deadfall Trap. The Cherkany was a sophisticated deadfall trap that could be set to catch anything from squirrels to bears, depending on the size of the weight used. This trap represented centuries of refinement in wilderness engineering, using precise mechanical principles to deliver devastating force with perfect timing and reliability. The trigger mechanism used a carefully balanced system of notched sticks that would collapse at the slightest disturbance. The main components were a vertical post, a horizontal trigger bar, and a delicate release mechanism that could be adjusted for different sensitivities. The tolerances were critical. Each notch had to be cut within millimeters of perfection, and the balance point had to be calculated precisely for the weight being used. For small game like squirrels and martens, the trap used logs weighing 20 to 30 pounds, positioned to fall from 2 to 3 feet. For larger animals like lynx or wolverines, weights of 100 to 200 pounds were used, with fall distances of 4 to 5 feet. The largest Cherkany, designed for bears, used massive logs weighing 500 to 800 pounds. The trigger system was incredibly sensitive, capable of being set off by the lightest touch. When an animal disturbed the bait, the balanced mechanism would tip, releasing the weight instantly. A skilled trapper could construct and set a Cherkany in under an hour using only an axe and knife. The Cherkany's advantage over steel traps was its availability. It could be built anywhere using only materials found within a few hundred yards of any forest location. The trap was also completely silent, making it ideal for areas where noise might spook other game. Most importantly, it delivered enough force to kill instantly while preserving valuable pelts, making it far more effective than snares or other trapping methods. Number 5. The birch bark container system. Birch bark containers were the Evenki's answer to waterproof storage, food preservation, and even cooking vessels. These containers were so well designed that they could hold water, resist fire, and last for years with proper care, making them indispensable for nomadic life in the harsh Siberian environment. The containers were made from large sheets of birch bark harvested in late spring when the sap was flowing. The bark was peeled in single pieces, sometimes measuring 3 to 4 feet square, then shaped using traditional folding techniques that required no stitching or glue. The natural oils in the bark made it completely waterproof. Different sizes served different purposes. Small containers, holding 1 to 2 cups, stored medicines and fire-starting materials. Medium containers, holding 1 to 2 quarts, were used for food storage and water transport. Large containers, holding several gallons, served as cooking pots and storage for bulk items like dried meat and fish. The most remarkable feature was their ability to be used for cooking. Birch bark containers could be placed directly over flames to boil water or cook stew. The bark would char on the outside but wouldn't burn through as long as liquid remained inside, keeping the temperature below the bark's ignition point. Number 6. The Reindeer Smoker System. The smoker was perhaps the most critical tool in the Evenki survival arsenal, a portable device that protected reindeer herds from the clouds of biting insects that could drive animals to madness and death during the brief but intense Siberian summer. Without this ingenious system, reindeer herding would have been impossible in many regions. The smoker consisted of a birch bark cone measuring 2 to 3 feet tall and 18 inches wide at the base, supported by a lightweight wooden frame. The bottom contained a fire pit lined with stones, while the top featured adjustable vents to control airflow and smoke density. The fuel was carefully selected for its smoke-producing properties. Green willow bark was particularly prized because it burned slowly and produced dense, acrid smoke that insects found unbearable. Other materials included damp moss, green pine needles, and specific plants that produced smoke with natural insect-repelling properties. A properly operated smoker could create a protective cloud that extended 50 to 100 yards downwind. The importance of the smoker system cannot be overstated. Without protection from insects, reindeer herds would scatter and run themselves to exhaustion, trying to escape the torment. The animals would lose weight rapidly, become stressed and vulnerable to predators, and often die from exhaustion or secondary infections. Pregnant females were particularly vulnerable, often aborting their calves when subjected to severe insect harassment. A properly operated smoker could keep a herd of 100 to 200 reindeer calm and healthy throughout the worst insect seasons. Evenki herders said the smoker was more valuable than any weapon. Without it, the reindeer would be lost, and without reindeer, the people would die. Number 7. The traditional Parka system. The Evenki Parka wasn't just clothing. It was a portable survival shelter that could keep a person alive in temperatures that would kill in minutes. This sophisticated garment system represented centuries of refinement in Arctic clothing design, incorporating advanced understanding of insulation, ventilation, and moisture management. The winter parka was made from a single reindeer hide, carefully selected from animals taken in late fall when the fur was at its thickest. The design featured straight converging flaps that could be tied with leather laces, creating an adjustable closure that sealed out wind while allowing ventilation control. The hood was lined with wolverine fur around the face opening. Wolverine fur was uniquely suited for this purpose because it resisted ice buildup from breath moisture, remaining flexible even in extreme conditions. The parka was deliberately oversized, allowing air circulation and additional layers underneath. This loose fit was critical. Tight clothing compressed insulation and led to rapid heat loss. The garment could function as emergency shelter, with the wearer able to pull arms inside and create a warm microclimate that could sustain life even at -40 degrees Fahrenheit. Number 8. The Composite Fish Hook System. Evenki fish hooks were marvels of miniature engineering, combining multiple materials to create hooks that were stronger and more effective than anything made from a single material. These hooks could land fish weighing 20 to 30 pounds while being small enough to catch minnows, making them incredibly versatile tools for survival fishing. The hook shank was carved from dense bone, usually from the leg bones of large animals like elk or moose. The shank was shaped using small knives and files, then heated and bent to the proper angle while warm and pliable. The point was made from a separate piece of steel or sharp bone, often from salvaged metal like broken knife blades or pieces of iron obtained through trade. The point was attached to the shank using sinew wrapping that created a joint stronger than the individual materials. The composite construction gave the hooks remarkable properties that surpassed modern alternatives in many ways. The bone shank was flexible enough to absorb the shock of a fighting fish without breaking, while the steel point was hard enough to penetrate tough fish mouths. The sinew wrapping could be tightened or replaced as needed, making the hooks repairable in the field using materials available in the wilderness. Different sizes were used for different species. Tiny hooks caught grayling and small trout. Medium hooks landed pike and salmon, while large hooks measuring 2 to 3 inches were used for massive taimen that could weigh over 100 pounds. A complete fishing kit included 20 to 30 hooks in various sizes, along with sinew line, stone sinkers, and natural baits. The entire kit was stored in a waterproof birch bark container and could provide protein for an entire family throughout the fishing season. Number 9. The Kamus boot system. Kamus boots were the ultimate Arctic footwear, designed to keep feet warm and dry in conditions that would cause frostbite in minutes. These boots used the natural properties of reindeer leg hide to create footwear that was both waterproof and breathable, solving the fundamental challenge of Arctic foot protection. The boots were made from the lower leg hide of reindeer, where the hair was naturally short, dense, and water-resistant. This part of the hide had evolved specifically to protect the reindeer's legs from snow and ice, making it perfect for human footwear. The hide was carefully processed to preserve these natural properties while making it flexible enough for comfortable wear. The construction used the hair-out method, with the fur facing outward to shed moisture and provide insulation. The hair lay in a natural pattern that directed water away from the foot, and the dense undercoat provided excellent insulation even when wet. The boots extended to knee height, providing protection from deep snow and wind, while allowing the wearer to walk through snowdrifts without getting snow inside the boots. The soles were made from the toughest part of the hide, often reinforced with additional layers for durability on rough terrain. The sole construction used a special technique that created a waterproof barrier while maintaining flexibility. Multiple layers of hide were sewn together with waterproof sinew stitching, creating a sole that could withstand sharp rocks and ice while remaining comfortable for long-distance walking. The boots were deliberately oversized, allowing thick felt insoles and air circulation that prevented moisture buildup. The loose fit was critical for maintaining circulation in extreme cold. Tight boots would restrict blood flow and lead to frostbite. The oversized design also allowed the wearer to wiggle their toes, maintaining circulation and warmth during long periods of inactivity. The felt insoles were works of art themselves, made from processed reindeer hair that had been repeatedly wetted, pressed, and dried until it formed dense, insulating mats. The processing technique created felt that was both warm and moisture-wicking, drawing sweat away from the feet while providing cushioning and insulation. The insoles were shaped to fit the foot perfectly and could be removed for drying or replacement. The insole replacement system was crucial for preventing frostbite. The insoles were changed daily during extreme cold, with wet insoles being dried by the fire while dry ones were worn. This rotation system ensured that feet never remained in contact with wet insulation, which would conduct heat away from the body and cause rapid cooling. The entire boot system could keep feet warm and functional at temperatures down to -60 degrees Fahrenheit, allowing Evenki herders to work outdoors for hours in conditions that would disable most people in minutes. The boots were so effective that they were highly prized trade items, often exchanged for valuable goods with other indigenous groups and Russian settlers. Number 10. The Bone Needle Repair Kit. The Bone Needle Kit was the Evenki's insurance policy against equipment failure, a collection of tools that could repair or replace almost any piece of gear using materials found in the wilderness. This kit was often the difference between life and death, when clothing or equipment failed in extreme conditions where replacement was impossible. The needles were carved from the dense leg bones of large animals, shaped and polished to perfection using traditional techniques that had been refined over centuries. The bone selection process was critical. Only the densest, most compact bone was suitable, usually taken from the femur or tibia of elk, moose, or large reindeer. The bone was aged for at least a year to ensure it was completely dry and stable. The carving process required exceptional skill and patience. Each needle was carved from a single piece of bone using small knives and files shaped to exact specifications that varied depending on the intended use. The needles ranged in size from fine needles barely thicker than modern sewing needles to large needles thick as small nails. The eye was carefully drilled using a heated metal point, creating a hole just large enough for the thickest sinew thread. The polishing process was equally important, using increasingly fine abrasives to create a surface smooth as glass. The needles were rubbed with fine sand, then polished with leather, and finally buffed with soft fur until they gleamed. This smooth finish was essential for preventing the needle from catching on fabric or leather during sewing, which could tear delicate materials or break the needle. The kit included an awl carved from dense bone and sharpened to a fine point. This tool could punch precise holes in the thickest leather, making it possible to sew materials that would be impossible to penetrate with needles alone. The awl could also be used for detailed carving work, creating the precise notches needed for trap triggers or tool handles. The sinew thread was processed from the back tendons of large animals, twisted into incredibly strong thread that would actually tighten as it dried. The processing involved careful cleaning, drying, and splitting of the tendons into individual fibers, which were then twisted together to create thread of the desired thickness. This thread was waterproof, stronger than plant fibers, and would last for years if properly stored. Different animals provided sinew with different properties that were suited for different tasks. Elk sinew was prized for its length and strength, making it ideal for heavy-duty repairs like mending pack frames or snowshoes. Reindeer sinew was finer and more flexible, perfect for delicate clothing repairs and decorative work. Moose sinew fell somewhere between the two, providing a good all-purpose thread that could handle most repair tasks. The thread was stored in carefully prepared containers that protected it from moisture and pests. Small amounts were kept readily accessible for emergency repairs, while larger quantities were stored for major projects. The thread could last for years if properly stored, making it one of the most valuable trade items in the Evenki economy. The repair techniques were sophisticated and comprehensive, allowing the kit to handle almost any equipment failure. A torn parka could be patched using a combination of leather patches and sinew stitching that created repairs stronger than the original seam. Broken snowshoe frames could be lashed back together with sinew that would hold for hundreds of miles of travel. Even damaged reindeer harnesses could be mended using techniques that restored full functionality. These 10 tools formed the foundation of Evenki survival technology, each one refined over centuries of use in the world's harshest environment. In the endless white silence of the Siberian wilderness, these implements meant the difference between thriving and dying, between mastering the environment and being mastered by it. They remind us that true survival technology isn't about complexity. It's about understanding your environment so completely that you can turn its challenges into advantages. Let me know in the comments which of these Evenki survival tools impressed you most. Was it the ingenious composite bow that stayed flexible at -58 degrees Fahrenheit, or the remarkable smoker system that kept entire reindeer herds alive? See you in the next episode.